earnings for up to 6 weeks and still get paid 55% of their salaries.
To take care of a newborn baby or a newly adopted baby or their parents or their spouse or domestic partner. And it was just expanded to cover grandparents, grandchildren, and siblings.
Former state Senator Sheila Kuehl authored the California Paid Leave Act. Millions of people are eligible. So are you if state disability insurance is deducted from your earnings. But only a fraction of those eligible are taking advantage.
Because they are afraid of retaliation from their employer, and it's state law. So they are obligated to allow them to take the 6 weeks with partial pay.
Councilmember Nury Martinez is now on a mission to spread that message. She's introduced a motion directing city departments to post reminders of these state rights in city-owned buildings. Now, these buildings would include public libraries, art and recreation centers. Martinez says a poster campaign is in the works. The advertising would largely target lower-income and immigrant communities. She says they're the most likely not to take advantage of the law because they're unaware, and also for fear of retaliation.
I know it takes some guts sometimes when your employer threatens you, but the employer is acting illegally, and people have to call them out on it.
The state law is being duplicated in Congress, where lawmakers aim to make paid family leave a national law. At City Hall, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Councilmember Martinez has also urged the LA City Council to support the federal bill, now dubbed the National Family Act. As the entertainment community mourns the loss of Hollywood executive Tom Sherrick, Mayor Eric Garcetti is picking up where his good friend left off and continuing his effort to slow runaway production with the appointment of a new film czar. Yana Kay has more.
It was just last September at Raleigh Studios when Mayor Eric Garcetti named Hollywood executive Tom Sherrick as his new senior film advisor. And now, after Sherrick's unexpected passing in early February from cancer, the mayor is building on the foundation laid by his good friend by tapping Sherrick's successor. Entertainment attorney Ken Zifrin will now be the city's chief advisor on motion picture and television production. Zefrin and Garcetti will work together to help curb runaway production and keep middle-class jobs in the city.
Jobs for carpenters, for painters, electricians, makeup artists, caterers, truck drivers. Jobs that pay well enough to help people save for a college education for their children, as well as for their own retirement.
As part of the effort, the mayor has already signed an ordinance that waives city fees for filming pilots in L.A.
And as mayor, I am committed to making sure that the Golden State returns the luster that it had in this industry, to keep our signature industry in this town right where it belongs.
The mayor says he and Zefrin will work towards boosting the local economy by increasing production through expanded state incentives. They say California needs to level the playing field with other states like New York that offer lucrative filming tax credits.
We have to be competitive with those states. We have to fight to keep these jobs here, not only for those jobs that are within the industry, but for our entire economy here in Los Angeles.
And Garcetti hopes with Hollywood heavyweights like Zifrin on his team, we'll all be hearing lights, camera, action more often in L.A. I'm Yana Kay for L.A. This Week.
Next week here on LA This Week, we will report on two films mainly produced here in LA that received Councilman Tom LaBonge's Made in Hollywood Award this year. We'll also bring you a special report on how the Oscar season boosts the local hospitality and retail industries. Well, LA is taking a page out of the playbook of cities like Seattle, San Francisco, and New York, and making its sidewalks into destinations. Yana Kay explains the People Street program and how sidewalks are being transformed into gathering places.
San Pedro resident Liz Johnson is attending this public meeting to see how she and the city of Los Angeles can help make her neighborhood, where she has lived for the last 15 years, more pedestrian and bike friendly.
We're really proud and excited that the Department of Transportation is taking a chance and doing this project and helping people make their neighborhoods more livable.
The project Liz is talking about is called People Street, a new Department of Transportation program which seeks to expand and enhance the pedestrian experience on public streets.
They help make it a little bit safer for walking and biking on a street because they help to calm traffic. They enhance the vitality of the corridor and for businesses by increasing foot traffic.
People Street encourages residents to give their input on where they think would be the best places around the city to create public space and which kind of public space. Of the 3 options residents are asked to consider, one is a plaza like this Sunset Triangle Plaza in Silver Lake, which converts a portion of the street into a public space with tables, chairs, umbrellas, and planters. The second option is a parklet, like this one in El Sereno, which extends the sidewalk onto the street and creates a pedestrian-friendly space. The third is a bicycle corral, which transforms seldom-used parking spaces into bike racks.
It's really about seeing things a little bit differently in the city and letting folks in the community who know their neighborhoods best propose project locations and build partnerships to help bring these projects to life.
Projects that officials hope will bring communities and neighbors together. I'm Yana Kay for LA This Week.
For more information on upcoming People Street meetings, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/LA This Week. Earlier, we spoke about the drought here in LA, and it's these dry conditions that make groundwater recapture more and more critical. As Anna Marcos tells us, One Valley community is marking a new era in water conservation on its street.
1, 2, 3.
The green ribbon cutting marks the start of a greener community. People on Woodman Avenue in Panorama City are celebrating a new stormwater capture project, which will recapture water runoff, filtrate and clean it, and charge the groundwater table back up.
We have basically a median that's about 3/4 of a mile long. It was covered with asphalt in the past. It had a few trees that were struggling. We went ahead and removed the asphalt cap. We removed the existing trees that were here before. We dug down about 8 foot deep, and we built storm chambers that are capturing close to 100 acres of water.
We are an example, a positive example to the world, that where there was concrete and where there was water just running away, we can actually do the right thing and preserve it.
The San Fernando Water Basin, which the project feeds into, is one of 5 basins in LA that provide a critical and valuable local water supply.
In this drought and the water supply issues that we have, this is another example of how you think globally but act locally.
That we can capture that much stormwater and get it to our local water supply, the San Fernando Groundwater Basin, instead of throwing it away as a means to deliver pollution to the ocean, is phenomenal.
Drought-resistant plants and landscaping, an irrigation system, and information signs will also make the project both beautiful and educational.
It's actually a learning experiment. It's also something that kids can walk to and we can talk about what sustainability means.
It has multi-benefit, as you can see. It enhances the community, it provides open space, green space, and there is going to be some educational signage.
City leaders hope to create more green projects like this throughout the city. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Close to half of the project's $3.4 million budget comes from State Prop 50 funds. The Department of Public Works and LADWP helped spearhead the project. Ecuadorian Americans recently held a celebration attended by none other than our mayor, a celebration of their identity as Americans and of their connection to their homeland. Yana Kay has more.
The sounds of the classical guitar gently resonate throughout the Tom Bradley Tower at City Hall as Ecuadorian American artists and musicians perform traditional music from their ancestral home.
Even though I wasn't born in Ecuador, my blood is Ecuadorian, so I remember that and I'm inspired to do Spanish music.
The music is all part of the anniversary of the Ecuadorian American dual citizenship celebration. As dual citizens, these folks here say not only can they enjoy all the benefits offered by the United States,
but it's also wonderful to know that we have our legal rights like Ecuadorians and go back and vote and elect our president and our vice president.
The event also recognized the contributions made by the Ecuadorian American community.
When we look at Los Angeles and what we've built here, this example to the world, your story is my story. The generations that have come here seeking a better life and that have built great cities. And I always think that Los Angeles is one of the greatest Ecuadorian cities in the world.
Several Ecuadorian Americans received certificates for all the work they do on behalf of the community.
It's a great opportunity to come together and say thank you because we're all here to love America and participate as Americans.
I'm Yana Kay for LA This Week.
The fire department prepares to launch a new 911 call handling system. The city sets aside $10 million for sidewalk repairs, and Silver Lake no longer an East Side community. These stories and more in City Beat. The LA Times is reporting that the Los Angeles Fire Department is launching a sweeping overhaul of its 911 call handling procedures. By early next year, the agency expects its dispatchers to be required to ask fewer questions of the caller before sending LAFD ambulances en route, resulting in what officials hope will be faster response times during time-critical emergencies. The changes follow a barrage of criticism of the current 911 response system, which reportedly required dispatchers to ask lengthy and confusing questions that callers must answer before dispatchers send help. Councilman Joe Buscaino has introduced a motion that would allocate $10 million to repair the city's damaged sidewalks. The proposal would divide the money evenly among 3 repair priorities. At locations where past claims and lawsuits have been filed in high pedestrian use areas and along iconic streets citywide. The final third would be allocated equally among the 15 council districts for a 50-50 program. That program splits the cost of sidewalk repairs with residents. The verdict is in, at least it is according to the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, which has voted to stop referring to Silver Lake as an East Side neighborhood. The vote comes as some residents of Lincoln Heights and Boyle Heights have objected to communities such as Echo Park and Silver Lake being referred to as East Side communities. Both of those neighborhoods are on the west side of the Los Angeles River, which has historically been used to separate the city's east from the west. The San Fernando High School football players received a special acknowledgement at Van Nuys City Hall recently. The team was honored by council members Felipe Fuentes and Nuri Martinez for their undefeated season.
San Fernando High School this year went 14-0 to win the City Section Division II championship. The Tigers came through in a very exciting second half championship game, which I was in attendance, to beat Southgate High School 34-32. And big round of applause.
I know a thing or two about not giving up, and even when you thought you were your backs were up against the wall, you fought hard.
The team's championship game victory marked their 18th straight win. It was also the first time the Tigers won back-to-back championship games since the 1974-75 season. An Oscar-winning actor and a legendary soul singer are among the honorees at a special ceremony kicking off African American Heritage Month here in Los Angeles. Gil Reyes reports from City Hall.
Whoa, she gonna be the one. We're gonna have some babies. Listen.
R&B legend Uncle Charlie Wilson serenading fans outside City Hall. Former lead singer of funk favorites, the Gap Band, is also a prostate cancer survivor and spokesman.
African American men are 2 times likely to die from this disease than anybody else. So I have a platform that I speak from to urge African American men to go get tested for this disease.
For his artistic and civic contributions, Wilson receives the Spirit of LA Award, one of several honors.
To celebrate in this month, African American History Month in the city of Los Angeles.
We're very proud to join with Mayor Eric Garcetti in honoring some great citizens who have contributed to our community.
Among them, former LA County Supervisor Yvonne Brathwaite-Burke.
And it's such an honor for them to consider the accomplishments of some of us who have worked very hard. I'm very honored for myself.
And retired Cal State LA President Dr. James Rosser. With over 30 years on the job, he's California's longest-serving African-American college president.
Well, it's a nice way to be acknowledged for what this city has given to me, and I'm just grateful that I was able to give something back.
Retired federal judge Consuelo Marshall helped pave the way for female litigators. Her City Hall visit is a homecoming of sorts.
I started my career here in this building in the city attorney's office, so I was the first woman lawyer hired in the city attorney's office, and certainly the office now is probably well over 50% women.
Golden Globe winner Angela Bassett and Oscar winner Louis Gossett Jr. are recognized for championing diversity and the arts.
I was just in awe of the other honorees, and just, marveling like, how in the world did I get here? But it's been a great journey for each and every one of us.
I think Los Angeles has got a great opportunity because of its diversity to be the first successfully diverse city in America, and then show the rest of the country by example.
There will also be a number of special events in honor of this special month, including a History of Jazz photo exhibit at the LA Central Library in downtown. For a full rundown of those events, log on to culturela.org. Outside City Hall, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
We will also post events from African American Heritage Month on our Facebook page. And in this week's list of things to do, picking grapefruit, a green living fair, and a public radio live taping at the Egyptian Theater. If you're a grapefruit lover, join in the 2014 Orcutt Ranch Do-It-Yourself Fruit Pick on Saturday, February 22nd, and Sunday, February 23rd, from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. each day. It's $3 for every bag of grapefruit you pick, or $5 per medium box. Bring your own bags and your own fruit picker, or you can rent one for $1. No ladders are allowed. Orcutt Ranch, a recreation and parks facility, is located at 23600 Roscoe Boulevard in West Hills. Call 818-346-7449 for more info. And it's a family-friendly and environmentally friendly event. The Green Living Fair on Saturday, February 22nd, takes place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Richard Lillard Outdoor Classroom, located at Valley Heart Drive and Long Ridge Avenue in Studio City. The event, organized by the Studio City Neighborhood Council and the Village Gardeners, will include live music and theater and dance performances, kids' activities, urban farming, beekeeping, a free fruit tree adoption, and much more. Go to studiocitync.org for details. If you love KPCC and you love films, then KPCC 89.3 FM's Film Week Oscar Preview is the event for you. The weekly program will be taping its annual 2-hour Oscar preview episode on Sunday, February 23rd, in front of a live audience starting at 1 p.m. Host Larry Mantle will be joined by several film critics, including Andy Klein of the LA Times Community Papers chain, Peter Rayner of the Christian Science Monitor, and Henry Sheehan of DearHenrySheehan.com. The taping will take place at the Egyptian Theater at 6712 Hollywood Boulevard. For more details and ticket information, go to AmericanCinemaTech.com. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do. LA is serious about celebrating and reviving its mural culture. And in the San Fernando Valley, a local artist joins forces with the neighborhood council and a local school to bring murals and the arts back where it once blossomed. Some are calling it the Reseda Renaissance, an effort to rebuild Reseda through the arts. And at the centerpiece of this community-wide effort is this mural at the Magnolia Science Academy in Reseda of Albert Einstein. The mural was created by San Fernando artist Levi Ponce, a man Councilman Bob Blumenfield calls one of San Fernando Valley's most precious treasures.
At 26 years old, you've distinguished yourself as one of the most important artists in our community. You're helping alter the visual fabric of this area and revitalize Reseda, which is a goal that we all have.
Ponce was showered with praise at the ribbon cutting of this mural, his second one in Reseda. But Ponce used his time at the microphone to turn the attention to those who will be looking at the mural day in and day out.
The title of this piece is called Logic and Imagination, and that's because I want students to remember, much like I would notice, that what we learn in school, the logic, the facts, the knowledge that we gain in school is not enough to just pass tests, but it's something that we need to use and apply for greater aspirations, right? For imagination, it's something to build on, something to use to create a better and brighter future.
And it seems like residents are also hoping for a greater and brighter future for Reseda, thanks to this mural and other recent endeavors to make Reseda an arts destination.
Everybody's talking about Reseda right now, which is great because prior to all this art activity, the things that people would say about Reseda weren't too flattering. So it's just really nice to have people saying such great things about Reseda and also about Levi. We're just so proud of him.
A proud moment for a community that's taking a lesson from Einstein, using both logic and imagination to put Reseda on the map. Ponce partnered with 1111, a creative collective, on bringing this mural about. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you could catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
With all the zombies?
Alert LA County takes the surprise out of disasters like zombie attacks, and without surprise, they're out of a job.
Alert LA County is a free automated system which sends out information about emergency events via telephone, text, and email.
Any skills besides flesh eating? Pick that up.
Events may include disasters, evacuations, safety notices, and if necessary, zombie attacks.
Next.
Register at alert.lacounty.gov.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Sergeants, please call the members, have them report to the... Good morning. It's February 18th, Tuesday. I want to welcome you to your Los Angeles City Council. We meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m., and the public is welcome. I believe, Madam Clerk, we have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Blumenfeld, Bonham, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Huizar, Carrasco, Krikorian, Labange, Martinez, O'Farrell, Parks, Price, Weston, 10 members present, 11 members present, a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Okay, Mr. Labange moves and O'Farrell seconds. Next.
Committee Trade Resolutions for approval.
Mr. Fuentes moves and Mr. Buscaino seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, today is Tuesday, and now will be the time for the flag salute.
Okay, at this time I will ask that all in the chambers please rise. We'll be led in our flag salute by Paul Koretz. Mr. Koretz.
Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Madam Clerk, where are we now on the agenda?
Mr. President, there is a request to continue item 1B to March 18th.
Without objection.
Item 1A is an item notice for public hearing. There are cards on this item.
Okay, let's hold that.
Items 2 through 9 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, specials, Mr. Buscaino.
Item 6, please.
Mr. Buscaino would like to hold item 6. I see no others. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, let's move on to the next.
Items 10 through 6.
In fact, Madam Clerk, when's the Larry Gross item coming up?
That was item 3, Mr. President.
Oh.
Do you wish to reconsider it?
No, I don't. I just wanted to shake him up a little bit. Where is he? There he is. Let's give Larry a congratulations. Congratulations, Larry. Okay, where are we now?
Items 10 through 17 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Without objection, those items are now before this body. Do we have cards?
Cards on items 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16.
Does that leave anything left for us to vote on?
That leaves item 17.
Yes.
Okay, no specials. Let's on item 17, correct?
Correct.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
So again, Otto, we want to congratulate you as well, and Larry Gross. Give Otto a round of applause. One of our new commissioners, and watch Larry as he exits. He's getting out of here as soon as he can. You did it, Larry. Okay, where are we now, Madam Clerk?
On the supplemental agenda, items 18 and 19 are items for which public hearings have not been held.
Okay,
10 votes required for consideration.
So without objection, those items are now before us. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Number 18, special for Councilmember Cedillo.
Okay, without objection, that'll be the order.
Mr. President, there are cards on items 18 and 19.
Okay, so we'll hold down. Mr. Labange, are you ready? So at this point, we want to... Mr. O'Farrell. Mr. Labange, the floor is now yours.
Mr. President, thank you, and members, thank you very much. We have a great long history in the city of Los Angeles, having employees who have great hearts. And we've been number one for many, many years as leading the efforts at all for raising money for March of Dimes. It's a tremendous event that we have. And the walk, Michael LeGrand is going to be our leader for Planning Department, which I'll introduce in a moment. But to think of our employees have always gone out on Saturdays and organized and raised money for the March of Dimes is really a compliment to those who serve the city of Los Angeles. For many, many years, the walk was in Griffith Park, but a new big 96-inch water line had to come through, and they found a new home in Exposition Park, which is even almost more exciting. I love Griffith Park, but there's nothing like the walk now in Exposition Park. First, let me introduce Mike LeGrand, the Director of Planning, City Planning, who's also our leader this year, following the work of the Department of Transportation and the great job that Zaki Mustafa, whose middle name is I Get Everything Done I Can Get Done, for DOT. They were the leaders last year. Michael's the leader this year. Michael.
Good morning, council members.
Morning, Michael.
I'll be very brief. This is an issue dear to my heart. My son was born 14 years ago at 2.5 pounds, and due to the research from the March of Dimes, he's able to have his lungs fully develop, and now he's a 14-year-old all-star baseball player. You'd never guess he had any complications being born at such a small weight at 2.5 pounds. A lot of that's due to the March of Dimes and the injections they're able to give him to help his lungs and cardiovascular system develop at 7 weeks gestation. So it's a great cause. We're going to have opportunities for all the council officers to get involved. For example, selling patches to allow employees to wear jeans to work, and being able to sell those and use the money to go to March of Dimes for a great cause, and also give your employees a benefit to look very LA hip in their jeans. So we're very excited. I'll turn it over to the March of Dimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to introduce the great director of the March of Dimes who's with us this morning. Please come on up and tell me, and I want to pronounce it correctly. Allison?
Allison Sprefkin.
Allison Sprefkin. Give Allison a big welcome. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you very much. My name is Allison Sprefkin, and I work with the March of Dimes. I have had this distinct privilege for the last 3 years of working with the City of Los Angeles on their March for Babies campaign. Last year with Zaki Mustafa and the Department of Transportation, the City of Los Angeles raised almost $123,000, which was 23% year-over-year increase, which is pretty remarkable. And this year I'm very excited to work with Michael LeGrand of the Department of City Planning. Like Michael, I too have a mission connection to the March of Dimes. My 6.5-year-old was born 15 weeks preterm and is now happy, healthy, and thriving, and that is due largely to the research and the funding of March of Dimes, which would not be possible without the support of people like the City of Los Angeles. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to Council Member Labange, and we're looking forward to a great campaign.
And Mr. President, as you know, there's something I want each of your members to know. You too could stand up here and lead the March of Dimes in the future, because there's an opening happening in a few years. So I wanted to let you know that. Think about it. I'm passing the baton. But before I do, I want to go quick shot, Sherry. Get it, Zaki, get in the middle for the great job you did last year. Michael, get in here. Here's our resolution for the day. It's for babies right here in the March of Dimes. Hold it up there. Give them a big hand, everybody. Hey, give them a better hand. Come on now. You were babies once, too. Thank you. Mr. President, with 2:25 left, I just must take this opportunity to introduce some great people from Manitoba right here. Stand up and be saluted by the City Council. They're students under the guidance of Zaki Mustafa. And not to be let down by Manitoba, please sit down right now. Good luck to Canadians in there. Our great friends from Seoul Metropolitan City Council who are learning about the process.
Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Weezar for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with us today is a group of very special students from Occidental College. They are taking a class on politics, Los Angeles politics. Their whole course focuses on Los Angeles politics. They are led by a good friend of mine that I went to Cal with, that we were both in student government, where we learned our trade out there at Berkeley. Professor Regina Freer, please stand up and be recognized by the City Council and the City on Channel 25.
Give Regina a round of applause.
And the students from Occidental College. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President.
Wait, where's my neighbor? Where's Melina? Doctor. She left? No, let's give her a round of applause because she's my neighbor. So everybody, and she's here with the students as well. Yes, Mr. Weezar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to reconsider item number 1A. That should be noted and filed instead of...
Why don't we check with the clerk? I've got a difference of opinion,
it's not up there. It's been called special. That's right.
What?
No, I'm sorry. All right, we don't have to reconsider it.
So, no, we haven't. We have cards on it, so we'll...
Well, we could note and file that lien has been paid. Okay.
You've got that? Okay, we still have to take the cards. Okay. Let's move on. Let's move to item 10. Daniel Gus. Daniel, please come forward on 10. And Wanakala. Yes, Daniel.
Good morning. With respect to item 10, I just wanted to point out to the younger people who are studying that look at these salary ranges as high as $127,000 a year. These are people who are math majors, economic specialists, and you don't get $127,000 a year studying ethnic studies. We'll talk more on that later, but look what pays $127,000 a year studying math, studying economics. That's what the city should be promoting. 1 minute. Thank you.
Mr. Akala.
Yes, I would like to tell these political student people that they're going to hear nothing but lies all their life.
He is not talking about
Stay
this
on
item.
the item, Juan, please.
Yeah, minimum wages, all it is, they are ploys to keep people in slavery. That's all it is.
Juan, it's not on this item. Just help me out. I want you to speak, but make it close to item 10.
The item is, how can people make enough money to even afford a place to live?
But that's not the item. So I'm going to give you your last chance to stay on the item. If not, I'll call you later on something else. Okay, there are no cards on this subject. Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Let's go to item 14. Called special by Mr. Sachs, Arnold Sachs. Arnold, come forward. You can give the young people an example of what you and I chatted about earlier. Arnold, item 14.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. On item 14 with the DWP, and actually I was going to hope to talk about 13 and 14 together. They're both contracts that have been negotiated, already done. I mean, we've heard a lot of stories about the mayors being elected and mandated to reform DWP. Again, contracts that are signed. But what's interesting about this one is this is with the security. And it mentions the security unit represented by the Service Employees Union 721 and not DWP. And the savings that are made based on wages, overtime, and retirement. And it mentions the cost of living, 2.9% cost of living adjustment, which is different than item 13. And I just wanted to point out that in a story from 131:14 about DWP, one of the people that were laid off from the, or terminated from the nonprofit, this Mr. Benjamin, decided to go back to his old job, the DWP civil service job he had before rising to the executive offices. I've been there 33 years, he's quoted here. I don't think I've taken a single day off. I'm not planning on retiring. That kind of thing means that when he retires, all that money is paid to him retroactively. That's a lot of money. Are you considering that in a mandate to reform DWP? Because I'm sure he's not the only employee who has that benefit. 33 years without a day off. Figure in a week to 10 days a year. Do the math. It's almost a year's worth of salary. And I believe his last salary was in the $200,000. So he's going to get $200,000 on top of everything else for retiring without taking a day off.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Mr. Cedillo, would you like to move on item 18 now, or do you want to wait a little longer? Or?
Public comment first.
Okay. So now we'll hear item 18. Okay, all righty. Melina, Abdullah, and I have somebody that's Griffin is the last name. I need a little help with the first name. And then if I could get Daniel. So, Melina, welcome, and go ahead.
Well, good morning. I just want to convey my sincere appreciation to Councilmember Cedillo for bringing this resolution before you. And my appreciation is not just from me as chair of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA, but also from Dion Espinosa, from Chicano Studies at Cal State LA, Chor Swang Yin in Asian American Studies at Cal State LA, and Beth Baker Cristales in Latin American Studies at Cal State LA. The resolution is in support of a requirement of a modification to our general education requirements, which would ensure that students would take one of their 2 diversity classes within one of the 4 ethnic studies units. We're in the process of GE revision, and it presents us with a tremendous opportunity to be bold and courageous and take a stand in support of ethnic studies. Ethnic studies does several things for our university. It provides students with subject material to which they might not have been exposed. We still live under an educational system, a K through 12 system, as well as a higher educational system that underrepresents the experiences and cultures and histories of people of color. It also helps with student success because we have a pedagogy that is culturally relevant, where students are encouraged to bring in their life experiences and connect them with their intellectual pursuits. And finally, ethnic studies does something by tying us to our community. We were born out of community struggle, and we remain tied to the community. So I want to encourage City Council to adopt this resolution. I want to thank you, and I want to ask that you be an example for our Academic Senate, which will vote upon this motion this afternoon at 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Miss Griffin, right? Yes. I'm going to have you pronounce your first name.
My first name is Tabisile. Tabisile. The
Welcome.
H is silent. Thank you. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Councilmember Cedillo for having this motion brought about. I am a Cal State LA Pan-African Studies major alumni. I'm currently a PhD student in the history department at UCLA. And I say that to say I'm speaking on behalf of the Pan-African Studies Department at Cal State LA and Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA, because we've received tremendously disrespectful opposition from faculty at Cal State LA, stating that students that graduate with an ethnic studies degree are only going to go on to work at Baskin Robbins or have these minimum wage jobs, and just extreme disrespect coming from our own faculty. And as you can see, we have a lot of support here from students and faculty from Cal State LA that are willing to struggle against this to make ethnic studies a mandatory class in our GE requirements. But I'm fighting for this inclusion, and ethnic studies historically has spearheaded social justice issues around the world. And I just think it's important that everybody is given the chance to take a class in ethnic studies in their undergraduate career. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Daniel, after Daniel, just hold for a minute, Daniel. Sure. There'll be a Carlos Montes and a Juliana Nacimiento. Santa. Anyway, Daniel, go on.
Good morning, and I offer these comments with the utmost respect and sensitivity to the 2 previous speakers. I'm quoting from the LA Times on October 30th of last year. Ron Scapp, the president of the National Association for Ethnic Studies, says regarding an ethnic studies education, and this is a quote, "What the hell do you do with this type of education? Can you run a corporation or fly a plane with this?" The article in the Times goes on to say, the programs also face stiff competition of all students of all ethnicities focusing on obtaining degrees with more immediate job prospects. My concern is that ethnic studies here is disproportionately represented. It's an important thing for people to know their background and culture. But we had a wonderful ceremony last week about Black History Month. Angela Bassett, Louis Gossett Jr., a wonderful singer, and a bunch of really adorable, bright 10-year-old children in the back. And I didn't hear one council member stand up and say, this is how you become an engineer. This is how you become a certified public accountant. This is how you become a court reporter. You should go into chemistry, into nursing, into systems integration. I didn't hear one council member show these children how you get into an engineering career and make $150,000, which is important to know your background, important to respect where you came from, but you're doing the children of the city a disservice when you disproportionately push one type of education to the exclusion of engineering, of nursing. Law is no longer a good investment, but how come maybe next February we'll have some black surgeons, some black female surgeons, or certified public accountants? It's the nerd jobs in this world that pay the bills and move people on to the next level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carlos, followed by Juliana. Where's Juliana? And
good morning.
Okay, I'm gonna let you do the first name. Cosico?
Yeah, Carlos Montes. Good morning.
Okay, Carlos. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Herb Wesson, members of the City Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Carlos Montes. I speak in favor of the resolution. I represent the the Community Advisory Task Force for Chicano Education, CACHE. How do you like that acronym? Good morning, Gail. Thank you for introducing this motion. I'm also here in support of the students, the Ethnic Studies Coalition at Cal State LA. I'm one of the veterans of the 60s who fought for Black Studies and Chicano Studies. I'd like to just read a brief section of our letter. The Community Advisory Task Force for Chicano Education, CACHE.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Dude, sit down.
Oh,
okay, you just don't stand in the halls. You're not speaking on this item, so please take your seat.
Yeah,
this is Mr. Montez's time.
Thank you.
Go right ahead,
He
sir.
didn't use up my time, did he? So again, the Community Advisory Task Force for Chicano Education, CACHE, was formed by Cal State LA students and community last year to begin to work together with the community at Cal State LA to strengthen and to expand the scope of ethnic studies. Now, this was last year. CACHE community organizations include the Association of Mexican American Educators, members of the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council, and we'll be taking that item up this February, this month, Community Service Organization, and the Raza Studies Now. CACHE fully supports the motion to mandate one ethnic studies class as part of the general education diversity requirement. This motion is consistent with the goal of CACHE to expand and strengthen the scope of ethnic studies in general. I'd like to leave you with a quote. I don't know if they used up my time, but quote, education either is used to facilitate the integration of the younger generation into the logic of the present system and bring about conformity, or it becomes a practice of freedom, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of this world. I, as an activist in the 60s at East LA College, took Chicano studies and became active the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Juliana, welcome.
Thank you. So forgive me, I'm a little nervous, but my name is Juliana. I'm a senior at Cal State LA, majoring in sociology with an option in diversity and equality. I'm also part of a couple of different orgs in our campus, SQE and Surge among them. So I'm here to tell you the reason ethnic studies is important is that it teaches us to see the world from a different perspective. As an immigrant from Brazil, I've been working hard my whole life chasing the American dream. I always thought assimilation, good behavior, and hard work would mean success. After 13 years, I was about to lose hope and started blaming myself for my failures, even though I couldn't see where I went wrong. Ethnic studies courses have taught me that there is more to it than just myself. Ethnic studies teaches us our histories and our struggles, that our peoples have had to fight for everything they ever got, and that the dominant groups never gave us anything. That people have been incarcerated and blood has been spilled just so I could learn about our fights from our perspective. Education and knowledge are the most powerful weapon against injustice. In a campus where the vast majority of students are people of color, how can we deny them their arsenal? Students from Cal State LA will come out into our city, state, and country knowing exactly what got them there and how to make it more just. LA deserves its schools to reflect its people and its history. We, the students, want this motion to pass in our academic senate, and we believe as students of Cal State LA, we should have a say in our own education. We just ask that you, as the City Council of Los Angeles, stand with us in the right side of history and help us make Cal State LA a pioneer in education for a more diverse and equal world.
Thank you. Alatunde Kosoko.
Yes, that's as close as you're going to get. It's fine. I appreciate you. Hey, everybody, how are you this morning? I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak on this motion. First and foremost, I just want to ask that you all support us in this claim simply because ethnic studies is imperative in the sense that it's a culturally relevant education, and it encourages and it empowers the students to take hold of their knowledge. So all we're asking is one of the 2 diversity courses be in ethnic studies. We're not asking for everybody to major in ethnic studies. And what we're claiming is that if they take an ethnic studies classes, then they can go back into their mechanical engineering fields or accounting fields or business fields and feel empowered, or come with a different perspective on the established hegemony within that field. So we're saying we're trying to offer a different or a counter perspective through our department, and that you can bring back to a field that doesn't even have it yet. We're adding on. We're not trying to subtract. We're not trying to force anybody. We're not trying to restrict anybody. We're just adding on. There's 2 classes in diversity that they're requiring. We're asking that one be in race, ethnicity, in class. One discuss race, ethnicity in class, and be in the ethnic studies department to offer that well-rounded perspective. Thank you for hearing us today, and I hope that you support us in this motion.
Thank you all for coming down. That, Mr. Cedillo, concludes our public comment on this item. So the floor is yours, sir.
Members, let's be clear about what we're asking for here is simply one class. This isn't about some imposition of some ideology or some framework for people to think. It's simply to ask for one class integrated into the mainstream of the core curriculum. That's it. It's asking that young men and women be given this opportunity in the most diverse city, one of the most diverse cities of the world. It's amazing that with over 100 languages spoken in the city, with the tremendous diversity, if we look at this weekend and the great accomplishments that took place in downtown, the great business advances that took place by Korean businesses, by Chinese businesses, talked about in the LA Times, that this wouldn't be mandatory in every curriculum. Now, you and I know that this was part of our education in college, and this is what inspired us. May 7th, 1974, I led a march throughout UCLA in defense of ethnic studies. I marched with a young man who then became the mayor of the city. I would say to you that even our president was inspired by his experiences with ethnic studies. But for those who still doubt whether there's some value in that, know that this is what lays the foundation for people then to go on to be extraordinary in science, technology, engineering, and math. This is the foundation. Because if you don't have a sense of yourself, then how can you go forward? So I ask for your support because this is needed today. If you think about an important industry like sports and entertainment, you think of the National Football League and the challenges they're having today. Don't you wish that some of those players had taken ethnic studies? When you think of diversity in the corporate culture, don't you wish that some of those people leading our corporations had taken diversity? If you think about human relations in government and those who lead in that area, those who figure out how government looks and reflects its population, don't you wish that some of them had taken ethnic studies? The challenges we had in our class for the fire department. Amazing in this city, as diverse as it is, that we could not get it right in opening up the exam. Don't you wish somebody there who was managing that process had taken ethnic studies? And so I think for practical purposes, for business purposes, for human relations purposes, that not only should there be one class in one school, but that this should be fundamentally a course that's required for every student in our community at every level. because it's only then that we can really build a diverse society in which every person is treated, as you know, Mr. President, with the dignity and respect they deserve. I ask for an aye, my colleagues. Thank you.
Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo, and I just want to thank Mr. Cedillo and for bringing this forward. And although we may think that what does this have to do with City Council, with the City of Los Angeles, that this does not concern issues of legislative responsibility, but in fact it does. It has to do with everything we do, whether we are math majors, whether we're engineers, whether we are lawyers, doctors. At the end of the day, it's about human interaction. And we have to understand our histories, where we come from, our cultures, and this will help make our integration of California even smoother as we turn from a majority-minority state into a minority-majority state. It's happening before our eyes, and in order for us to continue to be the fifth largest economy, it's going to take us internally knowing how we should work with one another. You know, and quite frankly, for myself personally, I was a Chicano Studies major, a double major in sociology and Chicano Studies at UC Berkeley. And it wasn't until I got to college and I took those courses that I actually learned about my own history. It's not something that I learned in elementary school, junior high school, or even high school. And if you look at the curriculum that we have these days, it has been biased as to not being inclusive as to all the people who played a very important role in this country. This will not only help us better work with each other, better contribute to this economy, but also it will also help us catch up in terms of those omissions that we've made in teaching our history to our young people. Thank you very much, Mr. Cedillo.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar. Tom LaBonge.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Cedillo, very important. You know, I have a proposal that I haven't got out of the blocks yet, but I want to see the University of California have a campus in Mexico City and the University of California have a campus in Vancouver. Vancouver, Mexico City, sister cities. I'm going to discuss that tonight, but with this item, I took advantage, Mr. City Attorney, to punch my button and say I support this. Because to learn about other people is our greatest strength. And having that both my parents were born in this city and their parents, one came from Ireland, one came from Germany in the 1800s, the city is only as good as the people it's brought together. And when I introduced the people from Seoul Metropolitan Council this morning, when I introduced them, they knew that the first business that they had was at Jefferson in Vermont. And as the Koreans have engaged and diversified within the life of Los Angeles, they've been able to be successful. And that's the most important goal, is to be successful, for all to be successful in whatever it is. So this is very important. We have a new president out of Cal State LA. I'm sure he'd love to have a phone call from me. He was down here recently when we welcomed him. But we should talk about these issues because it is important to use our universities. And I'm a proud graduate of Cal State Los Angeles, winner of 75, that we try to get this for these students and others. So I thank you. I'll support you on this. You support me on Mexico City and Vancouver.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. LaBonge.
Mr. Koretz.
Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I not only want to thank Mr. Cedillo for doing this, and I know there's so many different areas of ethnic studies, and so many of us are children of immigrants from various places. But I'm trying to remember where this was, but I know there have been efforts to actually ban ethnic studies of all types. I'm trying to remember which states and which places, to fight this kind of diversity and acceptance and tolerance. And I'm very proud that we're moving in the exact opposite direction, to celebrate our diversity and to celebrate that we have groups from every ethnicity thriving and working together in Los Angeles in a way that I don't think exists anywhere else in the world. It's not perfect. We can keep getting better, and this will take us a long way in the right direction. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Cedillo, for bringing this motion forward and allowing me to be a second on the motion. I think it's a very important motion for a lot of reasons, but I just want to highlight how this type of coursework affects people's lives. When I was a student at UCLA, I took an Asian American Studies course, and that professor helped me understand some of the issues that were taking place at the time in the state of California. That would get me the entree to meet people like Stuart Quo, Peter Shea, folks who were champions about making sure that we were speaking to the integration of all peoples in California and this great country. Little did I know, though, that that course would expose me to, at the time, an initiative that was called the Save Our State Initiative. It would propel me to want to get engaged in the political process. It made it so that I sought out the nonprofit that I thought would sue what would eventually be Proposition 187. It made it so that I wanted to get engaged in the process, and it changed my life for the better, I think. It made me get to a place where I eventually would serve in the legislature, and the last remnants of Proposition 187 that were not deemed unconstitutional, we were able to unravel under our leadership, Mr. Cedillo, in the state legislature in 2012. So I have told many friends and family that if my career ended now, it would be okay, because what I set out to do in 1994 to fight this injustice, to make sure that no other family, no other situation in the country would be the same like Proposition 187, actually has been realized. And so thank you, Mr. Cedillo, for bringing this forward. Thank you for being a champion for all people in this great country. And to what Mr. Huizar mentioned, I think there's an awful lot that goes into these types of classes, these types of studies, and these types of understandings of integration. This country is a magnificent opportunity for everybody. And it's our challenge to be able to understand that opportunity and to be able to communicate that effectively to every child, every youth, every person in this great state and country. So thank you so much for bringing it forward, and I urge an aye vote.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate.
14 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Mr. Cedillo, forthwith. Okay, now we're going to quickly go to item 12. Mr. Walsh, I didn't see you. And Mr. Akala, please come forward.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or jwalshconfidential.wordpress.com and tweeting at Hollywood Dems, 2 D's in the middle, Hollywood Dems. This concerns the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which I first trod on in 1966. And the name of Tom Sherrock, he recently passed away. He was a well-known producer and in charge of the Academy. At one point, president of the Academy. If you go out there right now and take a look at the state of the Hollywood Walk of Fame, it is pathetic. I'm putting the worst 10 stars in the worst shape on my website. It'll be on there soon. Tom LaBonge claims that you could eat your lunch off the site of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's filthy. It's broken. It's falling apart. It's an insult to those stars. HollywoodHighland.org.
Mr. Akala.
Yes, wish to speak 1 minute. Mr. Welch is absolutely right. I ride my bike all around the Walk of Fame there, and it is a poor sight to see. There are broken stars there. But that's not a big issue compared to, like, why can't we all just get along, you know, what these people are saying here? That's a bigger issue. Anyway, yeah, well, besides there's a disproportionate amount of movie stars that are white.
Stay on the item.
There's no Latinos in. Zero. And we wash all the dishes.
He is not talking about this item.
Come on, Juan, please, on the subject. All right, your time's expired. Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, that passes. Mr. O'Farrell, Mitch, would you like to move forward on?
Yes, sir. Public comment first, though.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on item 19. Mr. Abrahams, Fran Rickenbach, Arnold, wait, Arnold. No, and John Walsh. Yes, sir.
George Abraham, SaveHollywood.org petitioner. I wish to address item A, the infrastructure monitoring. Plutarch's Life of Lucullus has this line, quote, "The first messenger that gave notice of Lucullus's coming was so far from pleasing to Grannus that he had his head cut off for his pains, and no man dared to bring further information. Without any intelligence at all, Tigranes sat while war was already blazing around him, giving ear only to those who flattered him. Getting rid of infrastructure monitoring is the city's council's emulation of Tigranes. If you don't like the news, kill the messenger. The truth is that the infrastructure can't support the population increase that was projected in the recently voided HCPU, and for that matter, it doesn't even support the current population. So what is O'Farrell's solution to this? Eliminate the reporting requirement from the community plan. Knowing if the infrastructure can support the population is vital to a community plan. The language in a general plan should be strengthened to make it unambiguous that monitoring is a requirement and that funding for an annual report is a necessity. Angelenos must be informed about the decrepit state of our infrastructure. And if you're interested in a real reform, then include a requirement that everyone in the community plan area receive notice of land use changes occurring anywhere in the community plan area. The motion said consideration and ultimate adoption of the HCPU is preceded by extensive public outreach, end quote. But this was not so.
Hi there. I'm Fran Reichenbach, SaveHollywood.org petitioner. The general plan monitoring was not originally intended to be discretionary, and I would challenge anyone here or in the planning office to provide written proof that this has changed. Institutional memory loss should not be caused to suddenly decide to make monitoring discretionary. It seems that a blind eye has been turned to these monitoring requirements, but that's not a sound basis for now declaring that they are not a necessary aspect of our general plan framework. The ability to monitor the infrastructure is a critical component of the general plan. One of the many failures of the Hollywood Community Plan update was pointed out by Judge Goodman recently. He said that it fails to include a program to monitor infrastructure conditions, public services, population, housing, employment, and status of the update's goals and policies as elaborated by the State of California General Plan guidelines. So we should agree today that monitoring stays as a mandatory aspect of the general plan. Thank you for sharing.
John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. This is a great day. This is the first victory in the history of California and the EIR law. Thanks to Judge Goodman's decision, the EIR, the Hollywood Community Plan, and all of the trash was thrown out. And last Wednesday, you went in the back room and gave in. You are not going to take us to an appeals. What does that mean? It means that development in Hollywood, high-rises in Hollywood, are dead in the water. We will not need anyone to monitor the high-rises if they are not built. And that's the way it stands now. When you have a big victory, you exult. They laughed at us. They laughed at our lawyers. When we went into court, there would be 5 of your lawyers against 1 of ours. But the judge threw out as preposterous the Hollywood Community Plan. And let me read to you what it says here. Rescind, vacate, and set aside all actions approving the Hollywood Community Plan and all actions certifying the EIR. You are back to the drawing board. There has never been a victory this complete by neighborhood activists and every one of you who go through Hollywood. Remember, had we lost this lawsuit, you would have been stuck in traffic jams for the next 10 years. We will fight. We will stop the building of these 40, 50, 60-story buildings. You love concrete. You worship concrete. You worship concrete. You worshiped it this week when you pour millions of tons. We worship grass. That's the difference between the neighborhood activists and you people up here who are bought off. You worship concrete. We worship grass. If you want the full story on our victory, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Arnold Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. And it's very interesting that juxtaposition of these two items, item 18 and item 19. Item 18 referring to ethnic area studies, and item 19 referring to environmental impact reports for land use. Ethnic studies and land use. They're about as different as any two things you could possibly consider. That's an oxymoron. But again, so the Millennium Project is dead. There's no Millennium Project. And the other project that's halfway up to like 3 stories high is also dead. That doesn't make sense. But really, this is an old article that I managed to save from September 28th, 2011, where Governor Brown signed 2 bills, Senate Bill 292 for AEG and Assembly Bill 900, which expedites projects costing $1 million or more for EIR reports. So it comes as somewhat of a surprise that there really is only just 2 supporters from Hollywood who have an idea what's going on that show up, other than some people that show up on a regular basis. I would be wondering why the Hollywood representatives didn't call in supporters, get on the phone and have their people drum up support for this item on the agenda, it being a huge victory for them or their input on this item. I'm sure that when you do your minimum wage ordinance, there's going to be a load of people all the way down Main Street to come in here to this city council chambers. So where are the supporters or other people for this Hollywood plan? If there was a large group that fought this item, you would think that more of them would want to be in here to express their opinion. But there's nobody here.
Mr. Herman.
Another hurdle, another barrier. Students, illegal barrier, another hurdle. But a victory to Hollywood for this action. Infrastructure code requirements. And they say it failed. Why? Because the courts put it very plain. Rescind, vacate. Why? Because of the way your actions of thinking sound like this.
Please address us, not your tape. Talk about the item.
Going into point of conversation, monitoring will stay, the people will win, and every action that you take against the public and destroy public communities and ruin what is supposed to be positive and great for all this future is apprehensible. Your actions not to make infrastructure a priority of safety, and who cares about 200 loads of concrete? Who cares? Guinness World Book, here I am, the biggest Guinness World Book for pouring concrete.
All right,
and I'm going to finish my dialogue here by saying, community plan.
Herman, Mr. Herman.
government's monitoring programs are discretionary. No. Not mandatory? Yes. And that they are contingent on the availability of resources. And here we go. Saunders versus the city of Los Angeles. Hollywood, victory to the people. Egghead.
Daniel Gus.
If you ever wonder why people are so disengaged from civic issues, it's things like this. You know, if ever there should be a monument to citizen activism, it's to the Reichenbachs and the other people who form these various community groups. If you wonder why the voters don't trust our elected officials, whether here, the county, the state, or the Fed, it's things like this. You and your predecessors in those seats should have been looking out for us, and you weren't looking out for us. You're developing these plans because there are billionaire development dollars, and you should have been looking. Where are these fault lines, for example, in Hollywood? Why wasn't City Council, past and present, looking out for us? You know, if you had such a strong case, why aren't you appealing it? You're not appealing this ruling by the judge because it was so blatantly wrong and offensive. When you're sworn into office, you're supposed to be looking out for us, and you weren't. But we have local civic heroes who said, we're not going to take it, and it was a Davy and Goliath. There is tremendous civic disengagement, and it's because of things like this. You know, this is a perfect example. If you want to talk about empowering your citizenship, this is it. Thank God for Judge Goodman, and I hope that this is a cautionary about other things that you're going to try to sell us out for. If you ever want to talk about getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar, this is one of those instances. It's a great example of power to the people. The little guy stood up to the big guy, and the little guy won. Start looking out for us rather than yourselves.
Juan Alcala.
I absolutely agree with the previous speaker. This cement, this pigeon type living, all these apartment buildings, it's not for human beings, it's for birds. I hope the huge earthquake comes and levels the city so we can start over. That is the plan. We need a place where everybody has a home and no landlord. Now, you are bowing down to the developers. Yeah, concrete all over the city. Incredible amounts of concrete all over the place. You are full of baloney. Human beings were not meant to live in concrete. We are animals. We are supposed to live in nature. Nature, Mother Nature will nurture us. The concrete monster will only stifle us. Students learn from your politicians. They're full of baloney. They bow down to big dollars. We have built a system where the big dollar is what gets things across. Not for the better, but for the worse. Yeah.
All right, Juan, thank you very much. Doug Haynes.
My name is Doug Haynes. I'm with the Lamar Avenue Neighborhood Association. I'm also with the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council. I want to correct a few statements that have been made. There's no heroes. There's no congratulation. There's no celebration regarding the litigation that occurred. None of you are even paying attention to what's going on. People don't come down here because it's a circus. Why would anyone want to participate in this process? It's frustrating to us. As far as the planning department, people like Ken and Kevin Keller, they're good friends of mine. I've worked with them in the past. This was a disagreement over the plan. And as far as the motion before you, I think you really need to look at it and understand the implications. What we're talking about is in order to appease a group of speculators in Hollywood regarding a plan that affects approximately 200,000 people, you're proposing to amend the general plan, which requires an EIR, and the community plans throughout the city to impact 4 million people. Is that really what you want to do? I don't believe so. There have been statements made in the past about how the plan had wide community support. It didn't. There was tremendous opposition to it. There was opposition because the planning department came up with a plan and then tried to force it upon the public, instead of coming up with a reaction from the public on what should be the future of Hollywood and then forming a plan based on that. In my neighborhood, there was a 500% increase in FAR, in addition to some small decreases in residential density. But the whole concept that somehow the plan is centered around transit stop is a ruse. How many people use the subway stop at Melrose and Larchmont? There is no subway stop. 2 miles away from the subway stop, yet density was doubled in that location and height limits were taken away. So, Mitch O'Farrell, I've asked in the past with your staff to work with the community. Our neighborhood council unanimously opposed the plan. We look forward to working with you on the changes. Thank you.
Last speaker, Nicole Shahadian.
Good morning. Nicole Shahanian with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. This motion provides some much-needed clarification that we really need for our businesses here in Hollywood. Over the past week, we've been getting call after call to our office saying that the city has been denying permits being pulled. These are permits for normal businesses having nothing to do with the community plan. We definitely need this motion to pass so that business can get back to work. And regardless of how the city goes forward with the community plan, we need this motion to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No speakers on the queue. Mr. O'Farrell, we're going to call for the vote. Open the roll.
I think I'm going to speak. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it is precisely because of the lawsuit that we have to make it clear that the framework element does not contain the monitoring programs or policies. As counterintuitive as it sounds, it's precisely because of the lawsuit and the judgment that we must do that. Approval of this motion will allow Hollywood to have a plan in place and, very importantly, protect other community plans by amending and clarifying the general plan framework. This motion was developed in collaboration with the city attorney, city planning department, and the chief legislative analyst. We will work with planning and city attorney and the community to begin the work to revise the Hollywood Community Plan Update and its EIR. This will be done through a public process. And to Mr. Haynes' comments, that is my way of doing things. By working closely with the planning department on all aspects of this important issue. This motion sets the plan in place to move forward with long-range planning for Hollywood. It's a clear signal to community stakeholders and the economic development community that Hollywood will have a plan in place to allow the continuation of thousands of jobs. I ask for this motion to be adopted, and I understand that my colleague has a friendly amendment to offer.
Mr. O'Farrell, thank you. And Madam Clerk, the speaker's queue button is not working. If you tell General Services, we'd appreciate it. Mr. Weezar.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And colleagues, as we know, given the court case, this has put into question some of the development procedures for the Hollywood plan. However, it still may have some impacts in some of our other community plans that were in the pipeline. So, Mr. O'Farrell, with your permission and as a friendly amendment, at the last section of the motion, it asks for a report back in 30 days regarding the work scope, timeline, and resourcing for the work program to revise and update the Hollywood Community Plan and EIR. I'd also like to add that we asked the department to report back on impacts to the existing work program of community plan updates, the other community plan updates, so we can get that report back as well and have a clear understanding where we are with the other community plans, if that's a friendly amendment. Great, thank you.
That's accepted.
From the Planning Department here, should we have any questions for clarification on the framework element, its implications? He is here for that purpose.
No questions for Michael?
We're good.
So we're good?
Thank you.
We'd articulate it. So no speakers on the queue. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
All right, forthwith on that matter. Thank you, Planning Department. Thank you, public speakers. Next item would be 6. Is that correct, Patrice?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this item before you regarding amending the LA Muni Code to eliminate any fees associated with sidewalk reconstruction repair that's undertaken by the adjoining property owner was initiated several months back by an email that I received from a property owner that clearly had broken sidewalks in front of his business. He indicated in the email he was tired of waiting for the city to fix it and was concerned that his customers might injure themselves. So he hired a contractor and a consultant to obtain all the necessary permits. And though the bid he received from the contractor was about what he expected, $2,000, what he didn't expect and was shocked to find that the city charged him over $600 in permit fees and inspection fees. And we all know that the city of Los Angeles has sidewalks that are in terrible condition, and that the estimated cost to fix the sidewalk citywide is at a $1.5 billion range. Now, while we work to find a long-term solution and debate whether and how much the adjacent property owners should chip in, the very least we should do is stop penalizing those who are proactively undertaking these repairs with no financial assistance from the city and ultimately improve their neighborhoods. The Joint Public Works and Budget and Finance Committee report before you directs the city attorney to draft an ordinance to remove all fees associated with sidewalk repair. I want to thank Mr. Krikorian and his committee in partnering with my committee in this report before you. The CAO estimated a general fund loss of $58,000 a year, which is chump change, which a small price to pay for the infrastructure asset we will be gaining overall. So I'd like to encourage and ask for an aye vote and let the people of the city clearly indicate that we are doing our part and as a true partnership between residents and the city of Los Angeles to ultimately help fix our infrastructure. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Mr. Buscaino is a powerful chairman of the Public Works Committee. I thank you, because it is about sidewalks. It is about sidewalks in places where people are. I'm doing investigation, and Mr. Catalian from the CLA's office is doing a motion to ask to go before us to add to this concept, Mr. Buscaino, that you talked of, that there would be a difference in residential property, R-zone property, and that of commercial property. And Mr. Englander, as commercial property is usually held on for a longer period of time, the value of that property and the assessment is different than what is a turnover in a neighborhood house or neighborhood property. So to look at ways to fix the sidewalks is so important on that. And also, see this list here? This is what the planning department hands out when there's an engineer that needs to do a survey, because we don't do surveys on private properties. But there's no list that they hand out who can help you fix your sidewalk. And think how many people we could employ to fix sidewalks if we come up with a program. So, Mr. Chairman of Public Works, from the great community of San Pedro, representative from Watson San Pedro, keep pushing, and I'll be pushing behind you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
You guys are making a disturbance. General public comment has already been satisfied, or public comment has been satisfied on that item. So let's move to our next item, which is 13. It was called special by cards, but the individuals run out of time. So on item 13, let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, we're going to move to 11. Mr. Herman on item 11.
Great, thanks. Started. This is regarding rent escrow. For the record, to those arrogant persons who say that I am wrong about a bee killing a person.
Look, that is not on this item. Mr. Herman, thank you. Your time is expired. Sergeants, he is continuing to disrupt this meeting. Your time is expired. Your time is expired. Help him find his seat. Now, members, let's prepare to, you're still disturbing this council meeting. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
You're out of time. Next item is item 16. You are disrupting the meeting. Just sit down and please remain silent. Item 16. Mr. Walsh, you still have time. Mr. Akala, you're out of time. Item 16, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. There are two D's in that. As far as this is a shooting death of Roger Lamont Moore, July 6th. This is information, $50,000. Let me tell you why you're never going to get people. Right now, and I'm going to buy the T-shirt in Hollywood Boulevard. There is a T-shirt in a window. And you know what it says? It says, snitches get stitches, and there's a bloody razor. That's what happens to anybody who tells in the community, who will tell you who murdered him. Snitches get stitches and blood, and I'm going to wear it. And that's why you ask the people out here, you ask them to kill them, to have themselves bloodied and killed by telling you who was the gangster, who was the murderer, HollywoodHighlands.org. Snitches get stitches. People have been making money selling shirts, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll.
Yeah.
Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item 1. Mr. Walsh still has time, correct?
1 minute.
Does Mr. Herman have time?
Yes.
Mr. Herman.
Angelinos, 2242 West Colorado Boulevard, lien for $1,300, and my favorite number, 13.83. Continued from council meeting of February the 4th. To empower the public? What's this about? This has to do with liens, right, folks? And these liens are extortion, robbery. And whenever inhability is found to be out of repair or in a condition to endanger persons or property, or the condition to interfere with the public for convenience by Building and Safety and Housing Authority, take note, this notification by the city shall affect and not be erroneous or inconsistent. The city's public entities have an obligation to ensure that all enforcement fall within the law, viewed in its entirety. Inspections are needed so that building code violations are not taken out of hand. And as you all have heard and realize, building and code violations with these liens are illegal. You're robbing the public by enforcing liens. Your activism for notification is unacceptable, Mr. Huizar. unacceptable. You must notify people and let them be aware of their liens in your community and do something more for them, meaning remove the lien, cut the lien in half. And how do you do that? You come to Los Angeles. Anyone with a lien, you come here and voice your opposition, your opinion, and your personal feelings how Building and Safety and Housing Authority has ruined and hurt your life in your home. Homelessness, what a terrible shame.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh and Michael, carry on. Mr. Walsh passes. Michael, it's you.
Welcome. I'm here once again to speak on these liens. I'd like for some of the council members, if they would have some courtesy, to continue their conversations at a different time. It seems that every time a public comes up to speak, they want to talk. Yet when we want to talk, you have security come up and shut us up. Just a little consideration goes both ways.
Stay on the item, Mike.
The liens, I've always said this, are illegal because if you want to have liens on people, then let's make this viable both ways. If a council member refuses to clean up city property in his district, let's put a lien on the council member's wages. This happens in CD 14 a lot, Mr. Weezer. Called your office at least a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. It took me a month and a half, and they didn't clean it, someone else did, because they were going to put some property on there. Why do you guys let your property go to hell in a handbasket, yet you turn around and tell the taxpayers, the people who pay your salaries, the people who live in this community, don't come from another community to pay these fines? It seems like people like Tom LeBons doesn't even want to pay attention. He's busy doing something else. It's despicable when you start, reaching out into other people's pockets, yet you protect your own pockets. All I'm asking for is a little courtesy here. Keep these property taxes or these property liens viable for everyone. Clean up your properties, the city properties in your district, before you start putting liens on other people's properties. And I say it by putting a lien on the council members' wages until the properties are cleaned. Then you guys will have clean streets, clean properties that's owned by the city.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll.
Excuse me, Mr. President. For this item, there's a request to note and file this item in as much as the lien has been paid.
Okay, then without objection, that'll be the order. And that, Mr. Weezer, takes care of what you wanted to say, correct? I believe that is right. So let's move to 15. Mr. Sachs, are you still here, Arnold? Mr. Sachs, followed by Mr. Walsh. Item 15, sir. Arnold, item 15. Mr. Sachs, Mr. Sachs, item 15.
That's a hell of an introduction, sir. Thank you. Arnold Sachs. Two items, relatively. Again, this is a source of funding not included in the general funds, but earmarked to the council district, council office, that should be proportioned out to the neighborhood councils because they are more in touch with some of the things that go on that level of government. But more importantly to me, it's regarding sidewalk repair. And again, based on your discussion of ethics, you have two different items. This one's from 4/16/13, the Transportation Committee report relative to establishing regulatory requirements for installing bicycle sharing infrastructure in the public right-of-way, parentheses, sidewalks. Ethics, if it's sidewalks, if it's public right-of-way in your legal description, it should be public right-of-way in your agenda descriptions.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Walsh, item 15. Yes,
John
sir.
Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. Okay, this is in Mr. Cedillo's district. It's $31,000 for sidewalk repair. How does this break down? Salaries, $17,000. That makes sense. Construction expense, $4,000. Makes sense. Operating supplies, that makes sense. $4,000. Contractual services, $6,000. What the hell is that? Let me tell you right now. They want you to spend with bonded indebtedness $7 billion to fix the streets. Well, they have the money already. You can see right here. There's plenty of money to fix the streets. And also, this concerns tree repair. We have diseased branches that fall and killed an LAUSD child about 12 years ago. Sidewalk repair, yes. No bonded indebtedness may be incurred. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Let's prepare members to vote on that item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, Madam Clerk, where does that bring us at this time?
Mr. President, that brings council to general public comment.
Okay, Daniel Gus, followed by Mr. Walsh, followed by Donna Pearman. Daniel?
Good afternoon. It's time that the city get rid of its mandatory spay-neuter program because in Miss Martinez's district, an auto repair business was just issued a city dog breeding permit for pit bulls. I'm sure Mr. Koretz is proud of that. An automotive business just paid $360 for a pit bull breeding at an automotive business. But that's just the beginning. The same automotive business just paid $335 for a Chihuahua breeding business. But wait, there's more. They have 2 other dog permits, and the city's not even collecting its revenue on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th dogs. So why would anybody pay the city almost $800 for a pit bull breeding license permit and a Chihuahua breeding permit? These are the receipts. So it's a charade when we have mandatory spay-neuter. It's a great idea, but not when we don't enforce it. It's the same thing with dog licensing. In the past 3.5 years, you've missed out conservatively on $43.4 million in dog licensing revenue. But in Ms. Martinez's district, bordering on Mr. Krikorian's district, it's not as if we don't have enough pit bulls and chihuahuas in the streets. This is where you spend your most money housing, healing, and then killing pit bulls and chihuahuas. So anybody who wants to breed your dog, you don't need a city permit because the city will give one to an automotive business. You can go on Craigslist and buy one. Paul Michael Newman in Mr. Koretz's office was notified about this. He turned his back and walked away. It's all a charade.
Thank you, Daniel. Mr. Walsh, followed by Donna Pearman, followed by Arnold Sachs.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. Okay, Occidental Oil. Remember when Rick Perry came to town, you all laughed at him? Why did he come to town? To seal the deal. Occidental is leaving Westwood. Occidental is tired of crime. It's tired of the city where you worship 200 loads of concrete. Some people, not grass. Occidental, goodbye, goodbye. And all the other major corporations, and there aren't many left, leave town. Get out of town. We can't leave, but you can. Move to Texas with Rick Perry. Okay, fatally flawed. That was the Hollywood Community Plan. We won that one. Incident before, as you know, I have said that these people up here are trying to stuff residential beekeeping down your throat when bees are not in colony collapse in the city of Los Angeles. Snitches get stitches, I promise. The next time I come here, I will be wearing Snitches Get Stitches t-shirt. And if there's one damn one of you who would put this t-shirt on No, I'll tell you why you aren't going to put on Snitches Get Stitches t-shirt, because you're all afraid of the gangs. You don't have the guts to step with Stitches. O'Farrell has to wear adult diapers when the gangs show up in Hollywood. HollywoodHighlands.org. We are winning the war. This meeting would have been the most boring thing on earth if it wasn't for public comment. You sit up here with your middle fingers up your brown hole and do absolutely nothing. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Ms. Pearman.
Okay, great news that the developer and Hollywood losing and the neighborhood winning. That's a first of the neighborhood and business that you work with the neighborhood and businesses. But on another stand, I don't think you should force ethnic minority diversity training. All ethnicities are important to each other, and we all need to learn about all each other. Anyway, you're wrong and continue. Keep Van Nuys video conferencing closed. Mary isn't able to come here because she has asthma. The air is not good for her. And a 2-hour ride and 2-hour back, that's really almost impossible for her. Thousands of voices are being silenced in the San Fernando Valley. It's not right. It's not right for the disabled, elderly, minority, and youth. We need to open up Van Nuys video conferencing. I heard that Councilman Cedillo, in his district, he spent $1 million to clean up his district, and that was not agendized. And they have cleanings every day instead of just once a week. From Lincoln Heights and Mount Washington, I saw that. But certainly our 3 council members in the San Fernando Valley could fund the video conferencing in the San Fernando Valley and even advertise it. Because people need to know about the 761 bus that's going to Westwood. They're going to discontinue that bus and have it go down Sepulveda Rabbit to Westwood. But my Metro did not inform many people, that this was even going to happen. I came down there to find out the 761 was on the list, and I didn't know that. And they did not give us enough time to fight it. They only gave us like a week to fight it. It especially hurts those on Van Nuys Boulevard who don't speak English.
Thank you. Mr. Akala, until I call your name, you need to remain seated. Okay, no, don't interrupt. I think it's Sifu Kelvin Berman Harrison. Okay, please come forward. Followed by Mr. Sachs. Followed by Mr. Herman. Yes, sir.
This is continuation from February the 14th. Sifu Kelvin Berman Harrison, disciple of Grandmaster Kim Tae-chung, the Korean Bruce Lee, the film star, also member of the Watts Branch NAACP, and also relative of Dionne Warwick and Whitney Houston through my grandmother, Leona Drinkard. I'm going to finish what I had to start. Los Angeles Chinatown Society as well, with their law enforcement allies, have been targeting me because the Chinese society in LA Chinatown do not like my Chinese, Korean, my black, and my Mexican and white Kung Fu teachers. The hotel manager named Mr. Albert Kwong targeted me at his hotel, and the post office in the hotel plaza deliberately sabotaged my mail to Reverend Jesse Jackson, Sr. This evidence also was my life-threatening by renegade individual of the Hop Sing Tong. My teachers as well as part of the Hop Sing Tong, but they're dead now. Grandmaster Yit J, Grandmaster York Wai Lu, Grandmaster Arkyui Wong, which is very famous. Also, this individual at the hotel in Chinatown, the Best Western Motel, also illegally entered my hotel room. Individuals that's known about this, Reverend Jesse Jackson know about this. Implementations and poisons was introduced into my vitamins and so forth. Personal items was missing, etc., etc. This also extends from President George W. Bush presidency and also Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger presidency, because I was a political prisoner in San Luis Obispo of Mayor Alan Settle and also Mayor Romero. because of situations of them taking my inventions and trying to set me up dealing with racism and so forth in that town. Me and my daughter was a political prisoner, as well as many other individuals that was oppressed in San Luis Obispo. Los Angeles is my town, and I'm telling the truth about this, and I'm being targeted here in Los Angeles by certain cells of law enforcement, CIA, and FBI, because of the situation of me telling the truth of President George Bush's presidency and past Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger's office. And I will continue this later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Arnold Sachs, followed by Mr. Herman, then Michael Carrion. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning still, Arnold Sachs. Been beating this horse to death about the DWP and the newspaper coverage. And it's fascinating sometimes when you go back and look at some stories that have come through the newspaper. This one's from November 7th, 2013. This is from the Daily Breeze. And the writer, Rick Olive, writes that he's interviewing, or he's talking to Mr. Nichols, who's no longer with the DWP. And the story quotes that Nichols said the two institutes, talking about the nonprofits, receive only a small portion of the $115 million spent each year on training. So DWP, according to this story, is spending $115 million a year on training, $4 million a year going to these two nonprofits. So figure that out over 10 years. That's $1,150 million in training versus $30 million or $40 million in unaccounted for DWP money. What the hell are you doing with $1 billion in training? That's a lot of money for training. Why do they need $4 million or $3 million a year for these two nonprofits? $115 million a year spent each year for training. And I'm quoting from the story that mentioned that Mr. Nichols mentioned this money. Now, we know the mayor is going to clamp down on DWP. Oh, darn, they just signed a 4-year contract. So much for clamping down on DWP. So what are you guys going to do? Well, I know the coalition contracts are coming up. They just got their 26% pay raise over the last 5 years. I can imagine the clampdown that's going to happen there. But $115 million in training, and people
Thanks,
worried about...
Arnold. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Herman, Michael Carrion, and Juan Acala.
I'm going to make reference to item number 613/0941, which I called special. My interest of public interest for the United States is this. It involves the application and interpretation of Title II of the American with Disability Act, I'm going too fast, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, 29 U.S.C. 794 to the city's programs of providing construction and maintaining public sidewalk is this in question. How a park department would answer this question. What are the services and programs and activities of the park department? The answer from the city, one answer you would give, we maintain playgrounds. Similarly, and to what extent? To the extent we provide citizens with sidewalks and streets, we build sidewalks, we maintain. Do not construe the language, Mr. City Attorney, for the Department of Justice has specifically governed this to state government programs prohibit denying individuals with disabilities the benefit from Section 504 is broad enough to cover both. So in the meantime, when you come up with this jargon BS of how item 6 about public works and gang reduction budget for finance committees relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code to eliminate fees associated by putting the property owner to pay for sidewalk and streets, you already endangered people with disability, you've endangered elderly public, and what shame to rob the American people. What ignorance and shame to rob the American people under these disability statutes, regulations, and code. And for the record, FBI, Internal Revenue, investigate what they've done with this budget of sidewalk and street services.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Michael Carrion. Michael, come forward, followed by Juan Acala. Michael?
Thank you. I'm here for a few reasons. One, I'd like to give kudos to Mr. Cedillo for his employee, Anna Gomez, for helping out on the Temple and Beaudry cleanup. Just one clarification, it's not Echo Park. It's Temple and Beaudry. Okay? We did a cleanup, filled up one whole dumpster, and still had room for more. We're having another cleanup on the 31st. This is the community that used to live there and that still lives there is cleaning up. This is something that we brought to Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Cedillo didn't bring to us, but he did help us with what we needed, so this is why I'm here. Mr. Huizar should take little notes from that. This is not a photo op. This is a cleanup. We're here to clean the community up when other people choose not to. We cleaned up from the Harbor Freeway, Temple Street to First Street, all the way to Glendale. We picked up over a dozen sofas in our personal vehicles and brought them all to one site so that they can be picked up. This is not a photo op, Mr. Huizar. This is a cleanup. We've worked with your office before. Recently, there's no work coming out of your office other than a photo op. Okay? When I called your office for the retaining wall that's coming off, we had something set up. We don't have anything set up anymore. I'm telling you, we have something set up. We don't anymore. For the past 2 months, I've been calling his office trying to get a meeting with Paul. Not a return call. I used to call for him when he told me there was problems. Not a return call. So I guess he's not running for office, so now he doesn't want to return calls. Okay? I don't like coming down here, but I don't have a problem coming down here. I don't like embarrassing people, but I don't have a problem calling it the way I see it. Okay? If you want to talk to me, call me. If not, I'll be back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Acala. Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Cedillo, is this an accident, or are we still having problems with the queue? Did you press the button?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to point of clarification.
Go.
Temple Beaudry is not Echo Park. Temple Beaudry is where my father came when he was a young teenager from Barstow, California, to begin our lives in Los Angeles. And the cleanup is part of our overall Keep It Clean campaign in our district, in which leadership from the community is joining us. As you know, we started it when I was elected. It's the #1 issue in our district. We're going to clean the streets. We're going to do so working with the community in this campaign. So I thank the leadership that's come from the community. It's one of many that every part of the district is engaged in this cleanup effort. So I just wanted to.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Acala.
I was patiently waiting for this interlude. You know, the people are beginning to get some force against these clowns. Now we're allowed to call them dickheads and other things, thanks to one of our people.
He should direct his comments to the council.
Look at us.
August the 7th, that the people speaking are allowed to use street language. We do not have to be politically correct because we're not running for office. We just pretend to run for office, like when I ran for city councilman and you miscounted my votes. I should have just recalled the whole damn election, but I'm not like you. You see? They say I only got 3 votes. I spoke to at least 10 people that said I voted for you, and they were not bullshitting like you are. You see? You cannot bullshit all the people all of the time. I know Lincoln said it a different way, but Lincoln was full of baloney too. You know? He was just a politician, just like everybody else.
You knew him personally?
Yeah, he got shot by a redneck. By the way, my best friend here, she is a little bit of a... Are you?
Speak to the mic.
Anyway, my main issue is, how come if we're so advanced, we're pouring concrete all over the place and keeping people homeless? How come Washington, D.C. is surrounded by homeless people? You're telling us this is the greatest country in the world? You're full of shit.
All righty. That, Mr. City Attorney, concludes general public comment for... No. I have one more card. Oh. Leah Renee? I apologize. I put it aside so I wouldn't forget you, and I did, so
Thank
I
you.
apologize.
I appreciate
for
that. Hi, my name is Leah Renee, and I'm here to bring to your attention, I'm sure you guys know because the Auditor Controller has been working on it for the last 3 years about issues at the Department of Building and Safety, and in their, well, you can read it's a 28-page report, and it's been going on for 3 years. Anyway, the most important thing is I went there on Tuesday, February 11th, and I'm still inside that 5-day window because it was a holiday yesterday, and I am here under protest. I need that hearing rendered null and void because they forced me to have it under the wrong jurisdiction. 98.0403 is actually a jurisdiction to grant variances, to grant modifications. I've outlined it on this page. Believe you all have it. Please review it. This is just not acceptable that people aren't following the law. Anyway, I don't want to take your time. I just wanted to make sure we're all on record that you know what's happening at the Department of Building and Safety, Board of Building and Safety Commissioners. It outlines it here. Mike Bonin, I think he took it and walked out the door, but you can find him. I'm in his jurisdiction. The bottom line is we're on a landslide. The Palos Verdes Department might tell you how important it is to keep our land safe. That's the bottom line. We want to be safe. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for coming down. Okay, that now concludes general public comment. Madam Clerk, the council is where in today's agenda?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and they are referred.
It clears the desk.
Members' announcements. Any announcements? If I could ask everyone in the council chambers to please rise. Students, please rise. This is the adjourning portion of our agenda. So I'll look to Mr. Huizar, Mr. Fuente's side. Do we have adjourning motions to my left? Now I'll go to Mr. Price's and Krikorian's side. Do we have adjourning motions on my right? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Whoa, no. Mr. Koretz has an adjourning motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry you caught me on the other side of the horseshoe. Members, I'd like to adjourn in the memory of an extraordinary gentleman, family man, and pioneering member of our Los Angeles and Westwood Village business communities, Leonard Friedman, who passed away peacefully in his sleep February 7th, one day shy of his 96th birthday. He was born in Chicago and on February 8th, 1918. For 67 years, he was the beloved husband of Sarah Sonny Friedman, who predeceased him last October at age 91. The council adjourned in memory of Sonny Friedman with her husband Lenny and many other family members present at that time. He was a loving husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and leading Los Angeles businessman who was the patriarch and driving force in creating one of the most successful family-owned jewelry stores in Los Angeles. Lenny and Sonny Friedman created a legendary business in Westwood Village, starting out in 1946 as Crescent Westwood Jewelers. The business was renamed Sarah Leonard Fine Jewelers in 1998, combining their two first names and naming it in their honor. It is still thriving today with 3 generations of family members providing great service and friendship to their local clients. It is the oldest merchant in Westwood Village and a member of the prestigious American Gem Society. Sonny and Lenny were first-generation Americans and Chicago natives. Their story is the American dream come true. They met in 1942, and Lenny proposed to Sonny on their first date. She actually told him he was crazy, and they dated for 4 years, and were married in 1946. And started a mom-and-pop jewelry store, which Sarah actually said she expected would close down in its first year, but it went on instead to be quite successful, combining Lenny's expertise as a gemologist with Sonny's exceptional sales and marketing skills. And when it opened in 1946, Westwood still had many undeveloped dirt lots. There's a year-round ice skating rink in the village, and on the corner of Wilshire and Westwood Boulevard with two large signs that advertised ample free parking and shopping with ease. Things have changed just a little bit since then. Lenny was a leader in the national jewelry community. He was the president of the California Jewelers Association, was inducted to the National Jewelers Retail Hall of Fame, many other awards. Also was very active in the Westwood community, was president of the Westwood Village Chamber of Commerce, a founding board member of the Business Improvement District there, was president of the Westwood Village Kiwanis Club, and many other activities. He was honored by, actually the business was honored by the Los Angeles Business Journal in 2003 as the Family-Owned Business of the Year. Also, every morning, Leonard Friedman brought his wife a rose from their garden, a tradition they maintained from when they were first married. And he and Sonny were selected as the ideal couple by NBC TV in Los Angeles in a series about romance. The Friedmans said NBC have it all, said they have it all. Life's work together, children, and a good old-fashioned romance. Lenny's survived by daughter Linda, son-in-law Jeffrey Abel, son Don, son David, daughter-in-law Gail Friedman, 5 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. And the entire Westwood community and all of his friends and family will greatly miss him.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Mr. Labange.
Members, I ask for adjourned in memory of Ed Hook-Stratton. He was 83, a legendary agent. Was agent for Elvis, agent for Johnny Carson, and also was George Allen, the great football coach who was here. USC graduate, baseball scholarship, great guy. But if you look back, and there's been a number of people, Tom Sherrick and others who are behind the cameras. They lost a lot of great people, but 83 is a good run. God bless you, Ed. Thank you.
Members, this council meeting is adjourned.